This might just be the next band fly pattern. To tie it, we'll start off with some olive thread, secured to our hook shank, building up a thread dam just behind our chartreuse bead. Another great way to help seat your bead in place without having to reach for any other materials. With this complete, we'll begin building a thread base, wrapping back towards the start of the bend of our hook. And while I don't have the exact materials used to tie this fly, once I saw it, I knew I had to try it. So instead, I grabbed my carp dubbing, which I knew had some stretchy silicone floss in it, grabbed some of the chartreuse, and then several more, so we could tie up this pattern without getting all the necessary materials that are linked below. This is just a reminder that if you want to tie up a pattern, there's always a replacement or something you can use in a material's place. With this complete, we'll trim up the tips to make them even and secure it tightly behind our bead, continuing to secure it to the top of our fly all the way back towards the start of the bend of the hook. Here, I'll take a single thread wrap around it to help prop it up before bringing our thread forward. And if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies. And trimming it to length. For increased movement, I've decided to keep it about 2 times the hook shank in length, at which point we'll grab some crystal flash, select about 3 strands, securing it just behind our bead, and once again wrapping back towards our tail. At which point, we'll begin to bring our thread forward, building up a smooth transition in the process, and doubling back over to build up a carrot shape, before reversing our thread's direction once again, and finishing just behind the bead. We'll repeat this process as many or as few times as necessary to build up a carrot-like transition. With this complete, we'll grab our crystal flash and begin wrapping it forward in close, touching spirals until we reach our thread. At which point, we'll secure it tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind before snipping your excess free. Whip finish to hold it all together and paint it over with some UV resin to increase the shine and durability of this pattern. And this is the Purdy worm, originally created by Flyfish Food in a pink variation, which you can check out in the comments below. A simple yet extremely effective looking combination. Not only will this fly sink like a rock, it'll have exceptional movement in the water, and though I haven't tried it yet, will certainly catch you some fish. And without a single natural material on it, it might just be the next band fly pattern for competition anglers. So thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. You won't believe what this egg pattern looks like once wet. But first, to tie it, we'll start off by securing our thread just in front of our pink bead. Next, we'll help secure the bead in place by taking some wraps around it, securing both in front as well as behind, ensuring that it stays locked in place. At which point, we'll grab some egg foam, here I'm using the color cream, securing a small clump facing back towards our bead, before securing our tag ends tightly in place. With this complete, we'll fold over our foam, taking a few additional wraps over the top of it. Next, we'll grab another small clump of foam, securing it tightly to the underside of the fly pattern, and once again, securing our tag ends tightly. With this complete, we'll wrap our thread behind the bead before grabbing the egg yarn and stretching it out slightly. Next, we'll use our fingers to help rotate it around the fly, pushing back on it slightly to give it a round appearance. Once happy, use your thread to loosely secure it in place, helping to maintain its rounded shape to give it a nice, rounded look. Secure tightly in place, snip the excess free, and whip finish to hold it all together, and paint it over with some UV resin to add some increased durability. And this is an extremely fast sinking variation of the nuclear egg, a pattern that's known to be exceptionally realistic that becomes quite obvious once you get the pattern wet. And if you don't tie and want to help support the channel, you can find these on my website listed below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Conventionalists are absolutely going to want to ban this repulsive fly pattern. To tie it, we'll start off by grabbing a bead, heating up our hook eye, using a lighter, and sliding our bead in place, at which point we'll heat up the head of our fly once again, before sliding our bead forward, pulling it upwards, and fixing it in place with some UV resin. And if you want to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below, at which point we'll attach our thread just behind our bead, snap the excess free, and lay down a thread base for our following steps. Grabbing some super glue, painting it over our thread wraps before securing some Galaxy Mop in place. Here I'm using tan. Secure it tightly in place, ensuring that it can't be pulled free. Trim it to length, and burn the tip to help add some durability. At which point, we'll create a dubbing loop, grabbing some tan hairs here, sliding it into our dubbing loop before grabbing some ice dubbing and placing it at the tail end. Spin it up and brush it out to give it that nice, buggy look. At which point, we'll begin wrapping it just in front of our mop, pulling the fibers back as we go to not trap any in the forward position, and continue to do so until we reach our bead. At which point, we'll secure it tightly in place, snip our excess free, and brush it out to give it that nice, buggy look. Whip finish, snip your thread free, and reattach your thread to the head of the fly. Before grabbing some egg yarn, we'll cut it in half, securing it to one side of our fly before folding it over and securing it to the other. Whip finish to hold it all together. Snip your thread free, and this is a mashup of an egg and a mop fly that I like to call the Mog. It's actually quite productive at catching fish, but it'll scare away your conventionalist buddies, so use it with care. And if you'd like some for your fly box, you can find them on my website listed below. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
We're going to be tying up one of the best variations of the band squirmy worm. We'll start with some hot pink thread, snip the excess free, securing the bead in place using some lead-free wire. Helicopter the excess free and continue wrapping to the bend of the hook, at which point we'll take a few wraps forward and grab some stretchy material. Here I'm using a rubber D-rib, however, I would suggest using a stretchy dental band that I've linked in the comments. Create a loop with your material and secure it to the back of the fly. Make sure your loop's secured tightly by taking securing wraps both in front as well as behind your loop and continue towards the head of the fly. Snip one of your excess bands free, once again continuing towards the head of the fly. We'll fold our rubber material backwards, take a few securing wraps towards the head of the fly, and once again create a loop in our rubber band, using your thread to secure it lightly in place at first. This way, by pulling on the opposite end, we can shrink the loop to the size we're looking for. Once happy, secure in place with your thread, and continue wrapping towards the bend of the hook. Snip your excess free, and use your thread to smooth out the body. Finishing at the head of the fly. Hold everything in place by whip finishing, snip your thread free, and paint over everything with some UV resin to add shine and durability to our pattern. Fix in place with the UV light, and grab some spare wire. Use the wire to string it through the two loops that we just created, and open up the loops at the end using a pair of tweezers. Next, we'll grab some squirmy worm material, here I'm using pink, insert it through our loop, and begin pulling the wire to help draw the squirmy worm material through the two loops. They should be quite tight to hold it in place. Once complete, remove the wire, snip the squirmy worm material to length, and this is an improved squirmy worm, suggested by Tim from the Trout and Feather. I've linked his full video in the comments below. It's an excellent pattern that promotes a lot of movement in the water and also can be replaced if the fish chew it up. I would highly suggest giving it a try. And as always, if you'd like to win this one, comment #flies in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
This is both an easy and effective fly pattern. To tie it, we'll start off with some 6/0 thread, secure it to our hook shank, and snap the excess free. Wrap back up to the hook point before grabbing some McFly foam. Select your color. Here, I'll be using a light pink. And a magenta as our hotspot. We'll split the magenta in half. Combine it with our pink, laying it just over the top before cutting an inch section free and securing it to the top of your fly, starting off with some loose wraps before wrapping tighter and tighter to help secure it in place, at which point we'll take some figure 8 wraps around it to further help pinch it in place and ensure it doesn't spin around the hook shank. Followed by a few additional wraps over the top between the hook shank and your McFly foam, much like a parapost. With this secured tightly in place, we'll whip finish to hold it all together. Snip our thread free and paint it over with a little bit of UV resin to help increase the durability. Fix in place with the UV light and grab your post, pulling it tightly upward and snipping your excess free. We'll use our fingers to help twist it around the hook shank, giving it the rounded shape. And this is the classic Hotspot Glow Bug, an excellent and easy choice if you're going to be fishing an egg pattern. I prefer to tie mine like this, without spinning the yarn around the hook, so you don't have too much material in the way, preventing you from setting the hook. But if you don't tie and would like to win this one, you can comment #flies. And if you need a fly with a little weight, check out this video here to do just that.
This is a stonefly pattern that I like to use as an attractor, specifically for steelhead. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread, lay down a thread base, and add some wraps of lead-free wire in order to build up some bulk and increase the pattern's weight. If you need it to sink faster, you can also tie this with a bead head. Wrap your wire in place, snip any excess free, and secure it tightly in place by creating a small thread dam behind it, as well as in front, and wrapping throughout it. With this complete, we'll wrap our thread backwards, well into the bend of the hook, and create a small buildup of thread. With this complete, we'll grab some black biots, snip a couple free, and secure them to the back of the fly. The thread dam that we just created will help splay them out in a V-shaped pattern, like so. Secure the remainder of the biots in place, and use your thread to help build up a transition leading up to your wire wraps. With this complete, we'll grab some vinyl D-rib. Here I'm using a medium in black, securing it towards the wire and wrapping back towards our biots. This will also help increase the bulk of your fly pattern. With this complete, we'll use our thread to continue creating our transition up towards the wire wraps until we're happy. You can build up as much or as little bulk as you like. Once happy, we'll wrap back down towards our biots, grabbing some black hare's ear and creating a dubbing noodle. Spinning our dubbing noodle forward in close touching spirals until we're slightly on top of our wire wraps, at which point we'll brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. Next, we'll grab our vinyl D-rib and begin to wrap it forward in close touching spirals. On each wrap, we'll grab our dubbing brush, brushing our fibers backwards in order to help trap them with the vinyl D-rib so a few of them stick through. This will help add some texture in between our vinyl D-wraps to give it a more lifelike appearance. Continue doing so until all the dubbing is covered, at which point we'll secure it tightly in place, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind, and snipping the excess free. Create another dubbing noodle with your black hare's ear, wrapping this just in front of your vinyl D-rib. Brush it out, and grab some flash. Here I'm using lateral scale and pearl that I had laying around the desk. Secure the flash to the top of the hook shank, wrapping back slightly on top of our dubbing ball, followed by some thin skin. Here I'm using a molted turkey tail. With this complete, we'll grab some blue ice dubbing along with some black hare's ear. Mix the two together to create a dubbing mix. The small amount of hare's ear will help add some different texture and character to your dubbing. Create a dubbing noodle and begin wrapping this to build up some bulk just in front of our other materials, brushing it out in a downward motion to give it a nice buggy look. We'll then fold over our thin skin, taking some thread wraps to secure it tightly in place before folding over our flash and securing it over the top. You can do these both at once. However, I have an easier time securing them properly in the position I'd like if I do one at a time. With this complete, we'll fold both of them backwards, wrapping on top of them slightly to hold them in place before our next steps. Once complete, we'll create another dubbing ball of the same blend and repeat the steps that we just took 2 more times, keeping in mind that you want to build up a transition and still leave some room at the head of the fly. And if you'd like to win this fly, comment #flies in the comments below. Once we finish our final step, we'll snip our thin skin and flash free, and grab some more black biots. This time, we'll use some smaller ones located at the tip of the biot, securing them at the head of the fly, once again in a V formation, before snipping the excess free. With this complete, we'll use our thread to build up a small head of the fly, just behind our hook eye, whip finishing to secure it in place, and continue adding some bulk. Snip your thread free, and grab some UV resin to add some shine and durability to our pattern. I like to only add a small layer, so the character of our thin skin still shows through. Fix it in place with the UV light, and come back and add a small coat of UV resin around the head of our fly, once again fixing in place with the UV light, and brush it out to give it a nice, buggy look. And this is a stonefly that I like to use as an attractor pattern, particularly in blues for steelhead. However, it works quite well in any hotspot you'd like, or in natural colors. And if you'd like to pick up a few of these with a biot variation, you can find them on my website, listed below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
This productive pattern was banned for use in competitions, and today I'm going to show you how to tie it. We'll secure some white thread to the hook shank and snap the excess free. We'll prevent our bead from spinning around the hook by inserting some lead-free wire, securing it, and helicoptering the excess free. Lay down a thread base until you reach your hook point. We'll then grab my new favorite mop material called Galaxy Mop. You can pick it up from the JStalker website for 15% off using the code above. This particular one is in tan. Secure the mop material tightly to the top of your hook shank, and if you want it to be extra secured, you can add some super glue. Snip your Galaxy Mop to length, and wrap your thread to the head of the fly. Here, we'll fold over our thread, create a loop, and wrap it back towards the mop material. Return your thread to the head of the fly, leaving us with this dubbing loop. Next, we'll grab some dubbing. Here I'm using a laser dubbing in tan. Insert it into our dubbing loop and spin it up. We'll then brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. We'll wrap our dubbing up the body until we reach the thread. Secure, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. Finish it off by brushing it out to give it an extra buggy look. And this is the Galaxy Mop, one of my new favorite variations of the mop fly to fish. You can pick up all the materials needed to tie this fly by clicking the JStalker link below. Additionally, JStalker has provided a $25 gift card to one lucky winner. To win, comment #JStalker in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
This is quite possibly the ultimate woolly bugger. To tie it, we'll start off by heating up our hook eye in order to slide over a bead. Here I'm using fluorescent orange. Insert your bead over the hook eye, slide it to the back of the hook, and use a lighter to once again heat up the hook eye. We'll then grab our bead, pulling it in an upward motion just behind the hook eye. Further secure it by filling it with some UV resin. Fix in place with the UV light, taking your time to ensure that it's fully cured. With this complete, you should be able to bend out your hook just by pushing on the bead. We'll then grab some olive thread, here I'm using A-dot, securing it to our hook shank and snapping the excess free. Continue wrapping until you reach the bend of your hook, at which point we'll grab some marabou. Here I'm using olive. Measure it to length to be about 1 1/4 times your hook shank, and transfer your measurement to the back of the fly, grabbing your thread and using it to secure it tightly in place. Continue securing the marabou to the hook shank, folding it over, and wrapping your thread to the bead, folding your marabou back over and securing it tightly in place. This step will help secure the marabou in place while creating an even body transition, and snip the excess free. We'll then grab some crystal flash. Here I'm using olive. Snip away 3 strands and secure it to one side of your fly, folding it over and securing it tightly to the other side as well. With this complete, we'll snip it to length, leaving it a bit longer than our marabou, and grab some small wire. Here I'm using green. Secure it tightly to the head of your fly, wrapping back towards the tail. At which point, we'll grab some olive chenille, strip away the tips, and use this as a tie-in point to secure it to the back of our fly. We'll wrap our thread forward towards the bead and begin wrapping the chenille forward in close touching spirals, doing so until we reach our thread. At which point, we'll secure it tightly, taking thread wraps both in front, as well as behind the chenille, and snipping the excess free. We'll then grab some saddle hackle. Here I'm using a grizzly olive. Select one feather and secure it tightly to the head of your fly. Snip the excess free and begin wrapping it backwards towards your tail. I like to take about 2 or 3 additional wraps at the head of the fly before wrapping backwards in open spirals. Continue to do so until you reach your tail. At which point, we'll grab our green wire and use this to counter wrap our saddle hackle. This will help add durability as well as secure it in place. Continue wrapping your wire forward in open spirals until you reach your thread. At which point, we'll secure it in place by taking thread wraps both in front, as well as behind the wire, and helicoptering the excess free. Trim the excess feather free and brush it out to give it a nice buggy look, ensuring no fibers are trapped beneath the wire. And this is one of my favorite egg-sucking leeches that I like to call the nuclear leech. If you'd like to help support the channel and pick a few up, you can find them on my website listed in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. This is so controversial that some are demanding it be banned. To tie it, we'll start off with some chartreuse thread, snipping the excess free. At which point, we'll continue wrapping towards the back of the fly, grabbing some flash. Here I'm using pearl. Select about 5 strands and use your thread to secure it tightly to the back of the fly. Continue wrapping forward and snip the excess free. Secure your tag ends, once again wrapping back towards our flash. We'll trim these to length and create a dubbing loop, wrapping it backwards towards our flash. With this complete, we'll grab some white UV ice dubbing, inserting it into our dubbing loop and spinning it up. And of course brush it out to give it a nice buggy look. Once complete, we'll begin wrapping the dubbing noodle forward in close touching spirals, building up some bulk at the back of our fly. Once you reach your thread, secure and snip the excess free. Using your thread to wrap back on it slightly to give it a more brushed back look, pulling away any excess dubbing, making it about the size of your crystal flash. Next, we'll grab some chartreuse staz, securing it to our hook shank and laying down our thread base for the next step. Grab your staz and begin wrapping it forward, once again in close touching spirals. Once again securing it tightly, securing both in front as well as behind, and snipping the excess free. Whip finishing to hold it all together and brushing over the head with some UV resin to add some durability. And this is the controversial blob, a fly that many traditionalists won't touch, but is extremely effective at catching fish. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
Today, we're going to be making a guppy that I like to use to swing through the current. To start, we'll grab some white thread, continue wrapping until you reach the bend of the hook, and grab a mallard flank. Pull free a few fibers and secure them to the back of the fly. Continue securing to the hook shank until you reach your bead. Snip the excess free and wrap your thread back down to the hook point. Next, we'll grab some crystal flash. Here I'm using UV pearl, securing a single strand to the hook shank, folding it over, and attaching it to the other side, and wrap back to the hook point. Next, we'll grab some peacock herl. Select about 3 strands, invert your hook, and secure it to the bottom of our fly. Continue securing until we reach our tail, wrapping back up to the bead, and securing some more crystal flash, once again wrapping back down towards the tail. With this complete, use your thread to build up a smooth body, finishing just before the bead. Next, we'll grab our crystal flash and begin to wrap this in close touching spirals until we reach our thread. At which point we'll secure and snipping the excess free. We'll then grab some egg yarn. Here I'm using a light pink. Select a small clump, folding it over your thread, wrapping it slightly back to the body of the fly. Fold over the egg yarn to create a small egg sac and secure it using your thread. Once secure, snip the excess free. Fold over your peacock and secure it to the top of the fly, taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind and snipping the excess free. Whip finish to hold everything in place. Snip your thread free and grab some thin UV resin to paint over the fly. Once happy, secure with the UV light, adding some thick UV resin over the top of our fly to create a rounded shape. Take your time with this and only secure it once you're happy. We'll then grab some eyes. Add a little bit of UV resin to the side of the bead, carefully placing the eye and securing it once happy. Repeat this step to the other side and add some more UV resin to fill in the gap. I like to use this fly during high water. Swinging across the current like a wet fly can result in some aggressive strikes, but it also works well under an indicator. If you'd like to win this fly, comment #flytying in the comments below. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.
This fly pattern only requires one material and is sure to catch you some fish. To tie it, we'll insert a lead-free wire into our bead, secure tightly, and helicopter the excess free, at which point we'll lay down a thread base, wrapping back towards the bend of our hook, before wrapping forward, back up towards the bead. We'll then grab some egg yarn, here I'm using orange, and secure it tightly to the head of our fly. With this secured, we'll add some extra bulk by wrapping our egg yarn around the hook shank and fold it over to create a loop. Secure the loop in place using your thread, securing both in front of the yarn as well as behind, before snipping it free, leaving some extra material. Using this material to create a veil, spreading it over our loop, brushing it backwards, and securing it tightly in place, and whip finish to hold it all together. And this is a simple egg pattern that only takes a couple seconds to tie, so tie it up in all your favorite colors, and it will be sure to catch you some fish. And the best part about it is the more chewed up it gets, the better it looks. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for fishing your egg patterns? Well then this fly is for you. To tie it, we'll start off with some black thread and an oversized orange bead. We'll insert a lead-free wire into our bead to help hold it in place. Secure tightly with your thread and helicopter the excess free. We'll continue building up a thread dam just behind our bead and grab some brassy wire. Here I'm using silver. Insert the wire into our bead and secure it tightly with your thread, continuing to wrap towards the bend of our hook, stopping just before the start of the bend, at which point we'll reverse our thread's direction, ensuring that we have tight thread wraps to smooth out our body, and continue to do so until you reach the bead, at which point we'll grab our thread and begin to wrap it forward, starting with a close spiral at the beginning of the fly, after which opening it up to open spirals and continuing to do so until we reach our thread. At which point we'll secure the wire in place by taking thread wraps both in front as well as behind the wire and helicoptering the excess free. We'll then grab some peacock herl, select a single strand, and secure it to the head of our fly. Wrap your thread forward and begin hackling the peacock forward in close touching spirals until you reach your thread. With this complete, we'll secure the peacock herl in place and snip the excess free. And this is a fast sinking egg pattern disguised as a zebra midge. I'd highly suggest adding a few to your fly box for that fast moving water or pocket water trout. Subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one.